So the recording has now started. I welcome everybody to our session for grade 10 English with our very first lesson. Actually, our first lesson for this school year is one that I believe everyone is really familiar with, as this topic has come out to be discussed when you were still in grade 1. It had its share of discussion when you went to grade 2 up until you reached high school. I think that's one thing that I really like with English, because the lessons have actually remained the same. I mean, with grammar, the lessons have remained to be the same. There aren't so many changes with the scope of the discussion of grammar. There might just be some variations and a leveling up of the complexity of maybe the sentences and examples involved. But I tell you, when it comes to the content, there isn't much of a difference. The naming or the framing of the title of the lesson probably brings out a sense of newness or novelty to the topic, but it's just actually the same. And this brings me to our very first lesson for this school year, which is on nouns. Nouns. That's our. I'm going to maximize the use of the chat box for this. So my examples will be found in the chat box. The chat box will also be included in the video recording. So if there are others who wish to see the notes or some examples that I have added, the chat box will serve that purpose. And again, we have here nouns. What's the closest word that you could think of when we talk of nouns? Closest word. It's even a short word that we could think of in relation to nouns. I'd like to request Al to answer the question. Correct. Al mentioned names. And that's what basically nouns are. Nouns are names. They are names of people, events, places, occasions, what else? Dates, activities, hobbies, anything that could be possibly named is a noun. Anything that possesses a way to call that something is actually a noun. But nouns now that you're in grade 10, nouns will not just be looked at as a name of a plant, a name of a person, a name of a place, a name of an event. No. We will put that aside because that is expected somehow to have already been understood and embraced fully when you were in your younger years or perhaps in your younger grades. This time, we will look at nouns based on the different structures which could be used in noun positions. Thus, the lesson name for lesson 1, using different structures in noun positions. To those who wanted to have a soft copy of the module has already been made available in our Edmodo group. I've already played, and that's what I do. I mean, that's what I did last year, and that's what I'll still do this school year. Every Monday, I'll post my notes in Edmodo. And then within that same day, hopefully time's going to allow it. Within that same day, I'm going to post the video recording of the discussion in Edmodo as well. So that someone from this class, or students of this class will be guided on how to answer the activities found in the module. So we proceed with nouns. We are going to remind ourselves first of what the basic structure of a noun is. If it's a singular noun, let's start with a singular noun. If it's a singular noun, it is a noun which is in its base form. A singular noun is a noun which is in its base form. Basically, the base form of a noun is not inflected. When we say that a noun is not inflected, that means that it is not added with any possible character to change its structure or most especially its number. Thus, the base form. And then its plural form or the plural form of a noun or the plural noun is quite the inflected structure, which means that it is a noun which is inflected, having been added with an S, an ES, or might have undergone a change in spelling. But there are plural nouns which retain their spelling even which retain their spelling as compared to their singular forms. There. That's quite long. Wait, the sending is taking there. That's quite long. The plural noun, actually, I would say, from the many things that I've understood about the plural noun, that's one good way to look at it. The plural noun could actually be regular or irregular. A regular plural noun is one that is formed by adding an S or an ES, while the irregular plural noun is done by either changing the spelling of the word or just keeping it as it is. Let's have an example. Take for instance you have building. Building as it is as a noun does not have any other character to suggest its form to its plural form. Thus, the word building is singular in number. Adding an S to it would transform that noun into its plural form, thereby creating the word buildings, making building a regular noun. Let's consider one which is irregular. Let's assume that the base noun is child. The base noun is child, it's not inflected, and so child in terms of number is singular. Transforming the word child into its plural form, we have children. To be able to create the word children, we added the letters REN, which means that the change in spelling has been done. Let's have another irregular noun where we don't change the spelling of the word at all. The basic example, the word sheep. In its singular form, sheep is just sheep. In its plural form, we keep the spelling of the word. And so we don't have any word as sheeps because, again, that's grammatically incorrect. The plural form of the word sheep remains to be sheep, making sheep an irregular noun. And again, that's the basic form of a noun in its singular and plural form. Your module begins by telling us that adjectives can function as nouns. Once again, let's consider what adjectives really are. What do adjectives do? In the first place, adjectives are not originally nouns. Adjectives are modifiers. Take for instance, I'd like to get a sentence from you. Anyway, I'll repeat the sentence for it to be included in the video recording. Then, can you give me a sentence that contains an adjective? Okay, I'll try to put that in the chat box. An unlucky person needs to keep on trying. I think that's it. So this is the sentence of them. An unlucky person needs to keep on trying. Adjectives may vary in terms of its types. But the adjective that I'd like us to consider this time is the descriptive adjective, because that's going to be our focus. the descriptive adjective which will be made to function as a noun. In that sentence given by them, an unlucky person needs to keep on trying. We only have one descriptive adjective. What is that descriptive adjective, Jade? Correct. The word unlucky is our descriptive adjective. What makes it a descriptive adjective? Simple. What kind of person did them describe as someone who needs to keep on trying? The answer, look at the question, what kind? The answer is the unlucky person. That makes unlucky definitely a descriptive adjective in the example given by them. And that's what makes an adjective. It is a modifier. And it is a modifier to a noun or to a pronoun. But this time, we are reminded that descriptive adjectives can actually function as nouns. And yes, they can. One thing that we have to consider when we do this is that descriptive adjectives take on the plural form of the verb. Descriptive adjectives and the verbs have to agree in terms of number. That is why they need to be paired with the plural form of the verb. That is, of course, if you consider using the descriptive adjective as the subject of the sentence. Why are you talking of the subject, sir? When we consider nouns, nouns have different functions. Nouns could be subjects. Nouns could be direct objects, indirect objects, objects of the preposition, appositives, or even complements or subjective complements. We might as well start with that. As a subject, it is the one being talked about in a sentence. That's the basic definition of a subject. As a direct object, it is the receiver of the action. And it also answers the questions who or whom and what. As an indirect object, it is the receiver of the direct object. The complement, or also sometimes referred to as a subjective complement or a predicate nominative, is one that refers back to the subject. In fact, the complement can actually exchange or have an interchange of placement with the subject, and the sentence does not change in its meaning at all. The moment you interchange the positions of your subject and the subjective complement or complement, the meaning of the sentence is kept. Can the subject be the subjective complement in meaning? Yes. Can the subjective complement be the subject in meaning and context? Yes. That's what makes it a subjective complement. We have another one, the object of the preposition. This is the receiver of the relation established by the preposition. An object of the preposition is found in a prepositional phrase. So there is this group of words that starts with a preposition, and the head word in that group of words is what we consider the object of the preposition. The last possible function of a noun is as an appositive, which provides additional or specific information of a towards a noun, or yeah, towards a noun that it is trying to refer to. That's what makes an appositive. Now we go back to the adjective as a noun. Let's try having an adjective which functions as a subject. Adjective as subject. I'll just use the letter S, and the letter S corresponds to the word subject. I'm going to type something in the chat box. Yes. There. The sick are going to be welcomed to the tent. What is the subject in the sentence? Let's try to evaluate the sentence in terms of its parts. What is the subject of the sentence, Jacob? I hope the connection is fine. Correct. You have the word sick. The word sick is our subject in the sentence. And let's remind ourselves, what is the original nature of the word sick? Isn't it rather a word that we use to describe someone? Like in casual practice, we say, I am sick, and so I cannot go to school today. The word sick in that sentence has been used to describe the pronoun I. As it is used to describe the pronoun, originally it functioned as an adjective. Or you can say, my friend is sick right now. In that sentence, the word sick described the word friend. Since the word friend is a noun, that makes sick an adjective. But in this sentence, we did not use the word sick as a mere adjective. Yeah, I'd like to also make sure your cameras have been turned off. I mean, I can't see anybody. I just want to make sure if you are still there or you could hear me. Can everybody hear me? You can? You can? Okay. In this case, the word sick has been made to function as a subject. And since it acts as a subject in this sentence, the word sick leaves its being a regular adjective. It now becomes a noun. Sick in this sentence is now taking on a noun function. And look, what is our verb? It's are going. What is the number of are? Our helping verb are. Are is plural in number. That justifies the rule that when you use an adjective as a subject in a sentence, the verb must be expressed in plural number. It's not right to say the sick is going to be welcome to the tent. That goes against the rules on subject verb agreement. You, of course, subscribe to the rules on subject verb agreement. Let's have an adjective which functions as a direct object. As a direct object, once again, we are reminded that it is a receiver of the action, and also it could answer who, whom, or what. For instance, here's our sentence. My mother called the sick to her office. The subject in this sentence is the word mother. And mother is a noun. So that's not our issue. The thing here has, the sentence here has something to do, more importantly, with the word sick. And in this sentence, the word sick actually could answer the question, who? Who did my mother call? As the answer to the who, to the question word who is available, that answer is what we shall call a direct object. And so the direct object in this sentence is the word sick. Because the word sick, just answer the question who. Again, what is again our question? Who did my mother call to her office? The sick, or the word sick. As an indirect object now. If the direct object is a receiver of the action, the indirect object receives the direct object. It answers the questions for whom or to whom is your direct object. So, we can have a sentence that goes like this with an indirect object. The one being colored blue, I'll color it a big blue, this is the domain, and the one being colored yellow or orange, this is your range. The question a while ago was to compare the two graphs. Let's just concentrate on that. My mother prepared the sick, or sorry, my mother prepared the sick her list of medicines. What did my mother prepare? You have the list of medicines. For whom is that list of medicines? It is for the sick. So if we are to examine the sentence, the subject is mother. Our direct object is list or list of medicines. And for whom is that list of medicines? It is for the sick. We have a direct object, and that direct object is for the indirect object. And so that makes sick an indirect object in this sentence. Next, let's have the object of the preposition or the OP. As defined, the object of the preposition is actually an expression, a word or a noun that receives the relation established by the preposition. Also, the object of the preposition is found in a group of words which we call the prepositional phrase. The prepositional phrase is composed of a preposition that starts the prepositional phrase and its head word, known as the object of the preposition. So let's have this sentence. My mother. In conclusion, this graph is my mother gave this to the sick. What is the subject in this sentence? It is the word mother. My mother gave what? We have a direct object, and it's the word this. My mother gave what? The answer is this. To whom did she give it? There is a prepositional phrase in this sentence, and it is to the sick. That prepositional phrase is composed of a preposition and its head word. The preposition is to. And the object of that preposition to, object of the preposition to, is the word sick. The object of the preposition, again, is the receiver of the relation established by the preposition, which in the sentence is to, and also it is the head word of the prepositional phrase. Let's have another function, that of an appositive this time, the appositive. By trying to look at it, x squared means there are two values of your x, potential values of your x. While y, in linear form, you only have one value of your y. Two values of your domain. The guests, the sick, have been given special attention. In this sentence, our subject is the word guests. Have been given what? And so we still have a direct object. And that is attention, or if you want to give the complete one, special attention. There is an expression that gives a specific information of our kind of guests. A specific information and additional detail of the guests that have been given special attention. And that is what we refer to as an appositive, which in this sentence is the word sick. Again, the word sick does not just describe the word guests. In this sentence, the word sick does more than that. It gives an additional detail, a specific information of the guests that have been given special attention. Thus, the appositive function. Lastly, we have the subjective complement or the complement, the C.
X is equal to y squared plus k. More or less, this is the base of the equation of this graph. In our discussion on
the ones in the building are the sick. Take note, by placing a determiner, you might have noticed that I have always added a determiner before the word sick. In my examples, I think, in my examples, from the subject to the DO, to the IO, to the OP, to the appositive, you should notice that I placed a determiner before the adjective. Because that clearly now sets the distinction of the word sick as a mere adjective and the word sick being acknowledged as a noun. If I take out the determiner, if I remove the word sick appears like a mere adjective. Like, the ones in the building are sick. That does not clearly set a distinguishing factor between sick as an adjective and sick as a noun. The placement of a determiner sets that bar. And now, we go back to the sentence. The ones in the building are the sick. Interpreting the sentence, this tells us that there is a building. The people inside that building are the ones identified to be sick. And so, let's determine its components. Let's start with the subject of the sentence, which is the word once, or if you want to go with the complete version, once in the building. Okay. Our complement is the word sick. How do we know that the word sick is the complement to the word once? Let's try to interchange the placement or the position of the two. Can we have a sentence that says, the sick are the ones in the building? We can. And in that sentence that I had just given, did we change the meaning of the sentence as compared to the original one? We did not. That's what I meant earlier when I said that the subject refers to the complement, and in the same way, the complement refers to the subject, to the point that you could interchange the positions of the two, and the meaning of the sentence is kept as it is. Allow me to type that in the chat box. Rewritten version of the sentence.
X will represent the values of your horizontal line. If I'm going to draw the vertical and horizontal line values,
if you arrive at the sentence that says this, the sick are the ones in the building, comparing that to the original sentence, the meaning of the two sentences actually is just the same. Nothing has been changed, nothing has been altered. And that's what makes a complement. You look at these 6 sentences, or 7 with a rewritten sentence included. We used the word sick 7 times, or at least 6 times, in 6 different functions. And again, what is this part all about? An adjective made to function as a noun. This really gives justice to the idea that an adjective can really be used as a noun. And most importantly, please be reminded, once you use the adjective as a subject, the verb should be plural in number. Any questions so far before we proceed with the rest of the noun structures? When I was in elementary, and actually until high school, I was never informed of the possibility that adjectives can function
Okay,
as
Mark.
nouns.
Be patient, Mark.
Because then, especially in elementary, all that was told of us is that an
Mark, look at
adjective
this. Look at this, Mark.
modifies.
This is
I mean,
your
it does. But it
vertical line.
never got
This
into,
is your
I was never introduced to
horizontal
the
line.
idea that an
Remember,
adjective can
we call this
function
as
as a
the
noun as well.
preposition plane. This is the
When did I know
vertical line.
this?
Yes.
I have to be honest with you. When did I
If
know
I'm
that
going
an
to
adjective
draw
can function as a
vertical
noun?
lines
Only when I started teaching in
along
IA.
this graph, the horizontal line I mean,
I
then
only
I am
knew of this
already knowing
possibility
the domain.
because of the
Like
chance that
1,
I've been.
2,
Oh my
4,
God, this is.
6, 8, 10, and so
So if
on.
I were you, you
These
become
are
teachers.
now going to,
You'd know a lot of things along the way.
these
Not
are,
that you can't know them when you take on another profession. I'm just selling
this
out
will
teaching.
now
A
represent the
disclaimer to
values of
whosoever
your
is going to
name.
watch this video soon, because it's going to be part of my YouTube channel.
Ano
To
siya?
whosoever is going to watch
Name.
this video soon,
And
consider
I'm
that.
going to
Take
draw
education as a course,
values
you won't regret it.
domain still.
Much more if you take
Negative
English as a major
domain.
course.
Negative
I'm really
values.
selling the English
Still
course to
domain.
whosoever is going
If
to
I'm
take it
going
in
to draw
college.
numbers along
Questions?
the vertical line,
If
this is
there's
2,
none,
4,
let's
6,
proceed
8,
to
10.
another possible
Remember, this is
structure
negative
of
positive.
nouns.
This will now be
Now we
representing
are
the values of
going
your
to
what
proceed
is
with
also called your phrase.
verbals.
So if
There
you
are actually three
use the
verbals, and the
circle
third
like
one is not
this,
found in your
these are the
module
values of
because the
your
third
verbs of
one
your
cannot
x and y.
function as a noun. For our discussion on verbals, we are going to focus only on the two that are found in your module. What are verbals, by the way? Let's start with it. The word in the word
Remember,
verbals, you
whatever
could
you're going
actually
to do
find the
with it,
word
is it
verb.
times 2 or times 4 or
But a
times
verb is
infinitive, it
really
won't
different from a
matter
verbal
because the
in
calculation
terms
will
of
be
its function.
according to the maker of the
Functions will
equation.
be more or less our focus
So it
here.
depends on you on how you position your
Verbals
graph.
are action looking words. I mean, they
Then,
look like
that's all
action
it has to
words.
you
I
guys.
mean, they are action words. But they are not made to function as
Okay,
verbs.
let's continue with the
Verbals
next
denote
idea. It's
action,
the
but they take on
representation in
two
an
possible
expression. We will have
functions.
to look at
Verbals
the
may function as
values
nouns
or rather
or
exponents of
modifiers.
your
But
variable
then
y.
again, they look
In this
like
case, we give it
action words.
then
They are
this
actually action
function.
words.
If the variable y is not in
To
unit
start,
form,
we
it's
have
understood that it's not a
this.
function. However, there are instances
How do we
in
pronounce
a
that?
graph where the variable
For
y is
so
not in
long a
unit
time,
form,
I've been
but the
pronouncing
graph
it
will be
as
drawn
Gerund.
like pattern. So what
Yeah.
we're going to
I
do
think
is
when I
we
had,
have to set values.
I think we had this when
How
you
we
were
do
in grade
that is
8.
that I think you are familiar
And then I
with
pronounced it
tables.
as Gerund.
Values of table of
Then
x, y,
there
and
was
then
one
set
movie.
negative 1, negative 2,
I forgot the
negative 1,
title of the
2, and
movie.
then
The
substitute
word was
in
pronounced
the
as
equation
Gerund.
and find the values of your x. Sorry,
Gerund.
find the values of
So
your y.
I got
From
confused.
there, you need to
For the
find
many
the
years that I've been teaching the
representation.
subject, I
You're
pronounced
going
it
to
as
use
Gerund.
the graph. If the graph
Then
is
comes this
of a
movie,
function, we can
movie. Why did you say
an
movie?
indicator
Then that
behind
might
there.
just reduce my
Then
number of
conclude it is a
subscribers. It's
function.
movie, not
Otherwise,
movie.
conclude that it is not a
Then comes this movie
function.
that pronounced the word as Gerund.
So going back
Ah,
to
yeah, it's
the
Gerund.
activity, I think
Between
we're
the
now
two, I
going
find
to
that the
answer
pronunciation
correctly
Gerund
three of
is
these
more
questions.
interesting than the pronunciation that I've
Okay,
been used to. For a while, I haven't checked it yet. Let's
so
double check.
before we proceed,
Gerund
we need to make
pronunciation.
sure that the understanding is really
I'm
in
opening a new tab which you
uh,
cannot see. No, you cannot find the new tab that I've
notion.
opened
If the word is
because the only
started,
tab
I
you
will
could
give
find
you
is
a
you could
set
see
of
later on in the recording
words,
is this
and just
Google
try
Meet
to
tab.
see if you can conclude
Gerund
correctly whether the set of
pronunciation.
coordinates will represent a function
Still, I
or
could
not
hear
a
people
function.
pronounce it as
Okay?
pronunciation. I feel kind of bad for them. It's pronoun. Oh my god. Google Play it already. Gerund. Gerund. G- sounds like the name of Jerry. Jerry. Gerund.
Executives.
People, I'm so sorry if I mispronounced it before. It's not pronounced as gerund. It's gerund. It's not gerund. It's gerund. Oh my god. When you were elementary, was it pronounced as gerund? Is that how it was pronounced? Recall. Elementary. Gerund? Was that how it was sounded by your previous teachers? While it's not yet too late, it's the word is really pronounced as gerund. So the stress is on the first syllable. But of course, the other one is definitely pronounced as infinitive. I really beg to defer to whosoever says it as infinitive or infinitive. It's really pronounced as infinitive. But this word is gerund, not gerund, gerund. And when we expand a gerund, it becomes a gerund phrase.
Set. We have set
Still,
A. Set
what
A
is
to
this?
create one
Still
minutes, 2, 3,
feeling
4,
uneasy because of the
1, 5,
pronunciation?
3, 5.
Gerund
Last in
or
2, 3,
a gerund
1, 7, 4
phrase.
minutes, 1, 4,
How do we
2,
form
4,
a?
and
How do we
1 minute.
form it? I'll stop pronouncing the word.
Actually, class, there's a
How do we
form
create
A
that?
to
Let's start with a
to represent or
let's
to
start with the
express
form, not in a phrase.
preposition
I
or
really
noun in
would not want
function.
to pronounce the word.
Graph this in the partition
The
phase.
base
But
form
if
of
you
a verb
understand the
will
concept
be
of
added
preposition or not in
with
function,
an
this cannot be
ing.
done
Base
using
form.
a graphical representation that we can directly
Creating a
access
gerund.
by simply
Wala, I
looking
think
at the set of
I'm not
coordinates.
going to really enjoy it as much in the
So
video
after
recording
analyzing,
because
just
if
try
I
not
request you to
to
pronounce a word,
include
my
your
YouTube channel won't be
answers
able to
as asked.
deliver the
One,
voice you provide.
to
The only voice that
assess
could
the
be heard comes from
process
me.
which
So
reaches
even
the
if you say
prepositional
something
function
there, the world
will
would not
present
know how it
in
sounded.
such
We'll find
as
ways to resolve that.
the name
So
of
we have here a gerund
Alex.
created by having the base verb added with an ing.
Yes,
For
Alex.
instance, you have hold plus ing, thereby creating the word holding.
And then how about set
And
B?
take note, this gerund functions as a
Why?
noun. Expanding it
The
into a
name
phrase
repeated.
would
Okay.
mean that a gerund phrase
Let's
is
focus
created by having a gerund
focus on
and
the
its
again.
modifier
Once you got the unsaid correct,
or
now you understand it.
its
Focus on your
object.
if you focus
There are two
on it,
things
you should solve.
that you could
However,
add to a
use the
gerund.
concept of
There are two things that
base
you
and
could possibly
object.
add to a gerund to
Such
create a
as
gerund phrase.
if
It
you're
could be
studying
a
the other
modifier
way around, you focus on the
or
phrase
a
as the one
receiver,
repeated.
an
As long as
object.
you understand the concept.
So a phrase,
If
of
you look
course,
at
needs to have
set
at least
A,
two
you
words.
can
So you
see
have a
that
gerund
these two
and
coordinates,
its modifier,
these
that's
two
the second
coordinates
word,
class, 2
or
and 3,
a gerund
together
and
is 2
its
and 4.
receiver, the second word,
You only have
creating
one
a
domain here.
gerund phrase. And for
Again,
this
domain 1.
gerund, as it takes on the function of a
But you
noun,
have two
take note of
phrase that
those
starts with the singular phrase.
six
Now, if
functions,
you look at the
which
illustration
means that you
that
could make it
describes your
act as
right
a
domain,
subject, a
your
direct
domain in the
object.
noun consists the values
It's not
4,
much of an IO
1,
because this is an activity,
and 3.
and activities are so
Notice that
rare
the
to
difference
receive a
between
direct
the
object. So
same
I think we go
values.
with just the five: subject,
Grade 7 set and
DO,
set quotation. When we
OP,
derive
object of the
the
preposition,
elements of a set,
subjective complement or the
we
complement,
need to
and
only
the
write
appositive.
it once.
For
Now we
example,
have
let's
2,
have
2 push
gerund.
2
The gerund is
dalawang two, meron tayong dalawang two dito, but you only write
the
brain
gerund
once.
is
That is how you're going to write the
breathing.
elements of consent.
Breathing.
I think
Its
I
base
understand now
form as a verb is
her,
breathe,
her
added with
two
ing,
is
and so
repeated.
we have the
Two
word
is repeated.
breathing.
Yes, probably I agree with that.
Let's use it as just as a gerund,
Be
and
relation
let's
word.
make that function as a
So,
subject.
this single domain too, it's paired with multiple ways. Bigyan natin ng pagkakataon na lagay
Breathing is
when
hard.
you talk about the range, you have
What's
3,
so difficult with
4,
breathing?
and 5.
Regardless, in that
You
sentence,
only
our
need to
subject
write
is the
once
gerund
the two
breathing.
values of 5 or
Let's
the
make it a
two ways,
direct object.
the second or the third or the fourth word in it. So with respect to the values of your range and your domain 2 is paired with
How
two
can I turn
ranges,
that into
3
a
and
direct
4.
object?
That makes set A mere relation. But
And
how
I
about set
want
B? Alex said that it is a function. Can you justify the answer of Alex, Miss Lorraine? Yes.
I don't know. The sentence doesn't make sense. I mean,
Yes,
it doesn't
correct.
make so much sense.
Why is it a function?
But I think it does. Somehow, I feel like it does. But a part of me says that the sentence is not bearing any logic at all. Whatever. Let's look at it with one that contains a gerund functions, which functions as a direct object. I want what? Breathing. And how would you want breathing to be? To be a top priority. But you go back to breathing. I want what? Breathing. I like I like what? Breathing. I like breathing. You like nothing else but to breathe. Okay. Let's go with the object of the preposition, the OP.
Again, do not do not mention the repetition of range. Because if you are going to write
The
the
class
values of your
suggested
range,
for
wala kang
breathing,
repeat.
meaning
Isa lang
there was like an
four
asking or a soliciting of
So,
suggestions,
in the
and
four
then the
minutes,
class
you
eventually
notice
came
that
up with a
four is
suggestion
repeated
for
more than.
breathing.
But
That
that
was the idea of
is
breathing was
only
a
seen
suggestion of the
if you
class.
eliminate
Let's look
one
at
word.
in that sentence
After the
our
same sentence, word
prepositional
it. But if
phrase.
you are going to
Prepositional
pull
phrase
out the
is
values of your domain, the
for
values of your range,
breathing.
this is now going to tell us
In this
that
prepositional
your
phrase,
domain
there
1
is a
is paired with
preposition.
only one range. Your
The
domain
preposition
2
is
paired with
for.
the same range, not only one.
The object
Domain 3
of the
is paired with the same domain
preposition
range as
for,
4, and even if multiple
the
domains
object of the
has the same
preposition is
range,
the word
but their
breathing.
class in
Since the word
that
breathing is
represents
a
single range.
receiver
That
of
is
the
where the concept
objects of
of
the relation
functions
established by
comes
our
into play.
preposition.
Domain, that I did not say one,
Let's
only
go
one
with
domain.
the
A domain is
subjective
paired with
complement or the
only
complement.
one range. Any
My
domain is paired with
hob-
only one range. The word
hobby.
only is now
Why will you
pertaining
make
to
that a hobby?
the word range, the value that will represent the values of
Most
your word or for your
entertaining.
range. So that is how we can interpret domain and range, or rather,
The
this is
most
how you
entertaining thing
assess
I can
a
do is
function or a
breathing.
mere relation
In
given
that
in
sentence,
a
our
set
subject
format.
is
Either you can pull
thing.
out
It
the
is.
values of your domain
The word
and
thing is our
adjust
subject here.
basing from this set of
And what is
values.
that thing that the
Again,
person
if the
considers to be the most
value is
entertaining
repeated,
thing that
if
he
the
can
word
do?
is
It's
repeated,
the
you just
word
have to write
breathing.
one
And so the
with
complement
the
is
set
breathing.
elements
In
pertaining to
fact,
either domain
if
or
you
range.
are to rewrite this, the
So what is
written
going to
form
happen
of the
here?
sentence is this.
What is going to enter? Values of y. Asa man ang x dyan, sir? In a set of coordinate, in a
Breathing
set
is
of
the most
coordinate, your
entertaining
first
thing I
value
can
inside
do.
the parentheses is an
Look at what we
x,
did to
right?
the subject and the
The second
word
value
breathing, the
inside the
complement.
parentheses is
We
your value
interchanged
of
the
y.
positions of the two,
It
and
will not
still we
be
arrived at a sentence that bears the same meaning
and
as the
that's
original
how you
one.
are going to assess
Thus, a complement.
numbers 1 down to number
And so we
6
proceed to
of
the last function
infinitive.
of a gerund, and
Take
that's
note that in
the
infinitive 2, you will be
appositive.
determining whether each of the function is a
Ah,
relation or a mere, each of the
my
following is
suggestion,
a function or
breathing.
a mere relation. You can do the same as
Was
to how I did
laughed.
in my illustration a while ago. You
My
write
suggestion,
without
breathing,
your
was
domain
laughed at.
values, and then from there you
So,
can
what is the
identify whether this
subject in this
function as a
sentence?
function. Or
It's the
here
word
is the concept
suggestion.
of domain and Alex.
There is
That's
a
the
word that gives us of a
domain. So
specific
if you repeat the
information
domain,
or a
you release that.
detail
So if you repeat
of what that
A, it becomes B.
suggestion is. What was
Right
that
next,
suggestion that was laughed
I
at?
understand on how I
And it
read
is
this
our
today's concept, but perhaps
appositive,
you read
which
it
in this
the
case
other side or
happens to
the
be
way
the
you
word
you have
breathing, the
something
gerund
I
breathing.
I'm happy that
Again,
we have
it
multiple
didn't, the word breathing here didn't
description of
describe the
this
word
in that
suggestion.
state or
It did not.
singular
The word breathing
concept
here
how you can
gives
use
an
that
additional idea, a
concept
specific information, a detail, an additional detail of
okay
what that suggestion is that was laughed at. And the answer is the word breathing.
yes Mark
Since breathing does that in a sentence, breathing functions as an appositive. The same is true
ano
even if you
gusto mo
extend the word expand breathing into becoming a gerund phrase.
insert as
What if breathing
keyword
becomes breathing fast?
shall we say practice
Fast is an
suggestion.
adverb.
You need
Since
to answer that
breathing
in
is
order
an
for you to become
action
able
word,
to
we
see
cannot
and
use an
identify whether this
adjective to modify
function
it.
as a function. Use
One part
A.
of speech modifies
Again,
action
maybe
words.
dapat idea them
We
for
give that
the
role to adverbs. That's what adverbs do. They modify action words. Fast
yes,
is
Mark.
a modifier in the sentence.
You the answer it, Mark.
In fact, it looks at the question
You
how.
answer it.
Breathing how? Breathing fast.
Depending on how you
Or
understand your readings.
you can
So
expand
now I'm
it
going to explain
further.
to you for you to be able
Breathing
to understand what is my job here is to explain the
while
concept of a function. And from there,
staying
you
underwater.
compare your knowledge on hearing me out with what you read
Breathing
in
while
the
staying
previous
underwater.
module.
That makes another gerund
For you to
phrase,
understand your
a more expanded form or a longer one.
I'm guiding you on how you answer activity
Breathing
2 and activity
heavily.
8, but for activity 1, that is
Sorry.
based on
Uh,
your readings on the concept of a function.
breathing heavily. Another gerund phrase. The functions for a gerund still apply for the gerund phrase because the gerund phrase is just an expansion, a longer version of a gerund.
Again, Mars, this is
Questions so
about
far regarding the gerund
preposition.
or under the gerund
They
phrase?
say
Before we
once
proceed
said,
with the
it's
second
not something that you can
verbal,
teach over by this one. Everything that you
um,
need to know,
which we could
you have to
give. Well, how do
supplement
I
it with
state it?
your
The second verbal to whom we could associate the noun function.
that's where
To where we
your
could associate the noun function. Any question?
chain to the left or through the web comes in. It does not necessarily come only
Question?
from the teacher. That's
Can
you
everybody still
supplement
hear
it with
me?
your own effort.
I mean, I can see anyone in their frames.
Okay, to continue class,
Vem, can you
in
hear me,
the
Vem?
course of our discussion, we still have 4 minutes left,
Okay.
divided with
Can
my
you see anything from my
colleagues.
camera frame?
In the course of our discussion, we're going to make use of the notation F, then where we
Oh,
have a parenthesis
so I think the
X.
connection has something to do with it.
Again, this will
Any
serve
question,
as
people? Any
the
questions so
definition of
far?
our function. In the next lesson to come, I will deal more on
If there's none, I'll
how
proceed to the
that
second
brings the
verbal,
verb to a
the
function.
infinitive.
Why
Infinitive.
may not
For
always
sure,
be
this one is
what we
just
are going
pronounced
to
as
use
infinitive.
in the course of our discussion, but we will
Expanding the
use
infinitive,
the
we could create
function
an
notation. The function notation
infinitive
will be using the letter F followed by
phrase.
the independent
So the
variable
expansion of the
inside
infinitive
of the
again is the
phrase.
infinitive phrase. How do
Because
we
the
construct an
variable y now
infinitive?
is the
An
dependent variable.
infinitive
The
is
dependent
created by
variable
having
that
to
depends on the
the
value of your
preposition
x.
to
So does that
plus
mean that y
the
will
base
also be the same
form
value of
of
f when
a
this is
verb.
x? Yes. Y and
For
f of
example, you can
f
have
when
an
parenthesis
infinitive that
x
says
is just
to
actually the
adjust,
same notation, the same value,
to
just like how we did
determine,
in differential when we
to
had differential
uphold.
calculus number 1. When we have differential
The
calculus
structure of
we
these
have multiple
expressions
notations
is made by
properly
having a
belonging to one
preposition
concept,
to
and that
paired with a
is
base
the
form of
derivative.
any verb.
But in
To be is even an infinitive because the base form of all be verbs is be. Even if it's is, its base form is be. Was, base form is be. Are, am, where, all of those five share the same base form, which is be. And so to be is an infinitive. Expanding this creates, or expanding an infinitive creates an infinitive phrase. So how do we make an infinitive phrase? What makes up an infinitive phrase? Infinitive phrase. An infinitive phrase is made of an infinitive and its modifier or its object. Just like your gerund phrase. We can attach a modifier to an infinitive, or we could add an object or a receiver to that infinitive to create what we call an infinitive phrase. Sir, there are two words that make up an infinitive. Does that mean that they are taken as separate units to create an infinitive? Actually, an infinitive takes these two words as one semantic unit. When I say one semantic unit, it's one expression that already creates or holds up and provides one meaning. So when we interpret an infinitive, when we try to determine the meaning of an infinitive, we look at the two words combined to create one semantic unit. We do not isolate them such that one might say, determine is the object of the preposition to. No, we do not state it that way. We do not interpret the infinitive that way. We always look at to and the base verb as part of one semantic unit. They go together to create what we call an infinitive. So that single semantic unit is added with a modifier or with a receiver or an object to create an infinitive phrase. And the same goes with the infinitive as compared to the gerund in terms of its function. Infinitives can function as subjects, direct objects, object of the preposition, complements or subjective complements or predicate nominatives, and appositives. For example, let's use to determine as the subject. To determine my purpose is to determine. The sentence is not yet in the chat box. What's your next subject? What's the subject next to this one? CPA, CPA. Ano? CI, CI. CI, no, just. I don't know if you could already see the infinitive in the sentence, in the chat box. That's the sample sentence. By the way, if it's alright with you, my God, I lost my connection. Did you lose your internet connection? I'll just stop the recording. Isa lang ko mag-grammar unya. Uy, mag-grammar.